What's up guys, it's Carmichael here and I'm the Mindset and Performance Coach for Poker Ambition. Over the past few months, myself and Rene have been working hard to provide you guys with the best content and coaching experiences to turn you into the best poker players you can be. Rene will continue to provide you with expert strategy and technical knowledge, and I'm going to start producing more mindset and performance content for you guys to help you to level up. So if you do enjoy this type of video, make sure you smash that like button before you go so we know to bring you more valuable content like this. With that being said, let's dive into today's video. What's up guys? By the end of this video, you're going to know why you level yourself into bad poker players. Now sure, you've all been there when you're in a river spot and you're going back and forth between do I call, do I fold? A part of you wants to fold, but then you hover over and you click the call button. Just before you click it, or just as you're clicking it, you realize, should have folded. Should have folded. In hindsight, you realize it was a bad play. So in this video, you're going to learn what happens in those moments, what causes this kind of malfunction, misfire of the brain, and more importantly, how we can cope better in these situations going forward. All right. So the first thing you need to understand, or the first thing I want to put forward to you guys, is that the mind can be in different modes. All right. So the way I like to explain it is we have two minds that are particularly useful for poker. One is the training mindset. The training mindset is analytical. It's a problem solver. It likes to critique things. It likes to basically solve problems, analyze and use scientific data and numbers to solve stuff. All right, so I call this a trainer mindset because this is perfect when you're in the lab. All right, you're studying poker. Then we have what I call the performance mindset. All right, so the second mode would be the performance mindset, and this one is very empty. Your mind's very empty. It is intuitive. It's creative. It's go with the flow. It's accepting and it's calm. All right, so it's less thinking and more just going with your kind of gut feels. All right, and I would argue strongly that if you want to perform poker at a very high level, you need to turn on the performance mindset and get very good at using your intuition and your judgments in the moment. The analytical mindset is much better at the poker, away from poker tables. All right, so when you study and learn the game, you want that function. All right, so first of all, you can be in two modes. The analytical mode, for today we're going to call it the analytical mode and the intuitive mode. All right, just to make it very clear what we're talking about. Now the good news is, when you're in the intuitive mode, leveling's done. There's no leveling in the intuitive mode. Game over. All right. When you're going with your intuition, that's it. That's all you need to do. You have solved the problem at the core root level. All right. There's no overthinking. There's no leveling. You've made the right decision based on what you're thinking in that moment. All right. So all well and good. Thank you, Adam, for solving the problem. So we're going to say when you're in intuitive mode, problem solved. However, very often we end up in the analytical mode. All right. So the mind's being analytical and thinking. All right. So we're going to address how to solve the problem when the mind is already starting to analyze. All right, so let's say you're analyzing. What is the next thing that we need to be aware of? The next factor, the next thing that comes into play is your emotional state. All right, you might wonder why. Why does my emotional state impact my logic? Should I'm using my analytical mind? Why are my emotions important? And they're important because your emotions impact you on every level, all right? And your emotions impact the decision-making process, all right? So they're intertwined. You can't separate them. How you feel emotionally impacts how you think, all right? And we're generally making decisions based on what will feel right, all right? Even when you're using logic, we're based in it on how it feels, all right? So our emotional state impacts our decision-making at a core level, all right? So some emotional states you could be going through, you could be bored, you could be frustrated, you could be angry, or you could be alert and energized, all right? So if you think about those states, they don't affect your decision making, right? If you're bored compared to angry, you're going to be thinking pretty different, right? So this emotional state is going to impact how you play your hands, all right? So we're going to get to the river and like how we play spots and how we make decisions, but I want to give you guys the framework, all right? We need to go back a few steps and understand the mechanisms of what's happening in the mind before we can actually solve the problem, all right? So right now we've got the emotional state is impacting your decisions and understanding which emotional state you're in, all right? From your emotional state, you then put on this big filter, all right? You have a filter, all right? And for today, we're going to call it the aggressive filter and the passive filter, all right? And this is happening subconsciously, all right? So let's say if I'm angry, I might subconsciously have an aggressive filter. All right, I don't say a camera lens, an aggressive filter. So everything I see is through an aggressive lens. When I have the aggressive filter on, I want to call or I want to raise. All right, it's simple. I want to make aggressive lines as a poker player. All right, so when you're frustrated, angry, annoyed, often players will have a default. They'll have this aggressive filter running in the background without even realizing. All right, so subconscious program. Should probably put it here for subconscious. All right, so we've got this aggressive filter on. On the flip side, we can also have a passive filter. And the passive filter wants to fold. All right, so that's generally when you're bored, you're disengaged, you're not feeling like taking risks. Maybe on a downswing, you feel like your risk tolerance is lower. So now you're putting on this passive filter. All right. You may be going, well, how does this play out, and why do I need to know this stuff? All right, so it's really important because this is impacting how you think and what decisions you make. We feel like we're making logical assessments of situations, but very often we've got filters running that impact how we actually make the decision at the end. So let's use an example. Let's say we're in the analytical mode. We have a frustrated state because things aren't going that well today. And our filter is aggressive filter. All right, so we've got the aggressive filter over the top. Now, when you have the aggressive filter, that impacts the questions you ask yourself. All right, so the aggressive filter generally wants to call and wants to raise, as I said before. So you're looking for reasons to call. You're looking for reasons to be aggressive. You don't want to fold. You don't want to be pushed around. You're sick of losing. You're sick of having to fold and be pushed around. So you ask yourself questions. Say it's a river spot. You ask yourself questions like, what are his bluffs? What can I beat? What bluffs have I seen this guy do before? So you ask a question that frames the situation, and then you're going to get the answer you're looking for. So when you're in the aggressive mode, you ask questions that generally edge you towards the decision you want to make. All right, so you're almost like pre-biased, disposed to want to call or want to raise in these moments. So you ask the question, what's he bluffing? What can I beat? And once you ask those questions, guess what? The mind goes, well, he could be bluffing this, and this. You can beat that. He's bluffed this time and this time. Now you might say, awesome. All right. Well, guess I should call then, or should I raise? And your mind's in that mode. All right, so you've asked yourself a question, and as a result, the decision comes back, call, raise. All right, so although it felt like a logical process in your mind analyzing, because you had a strong filter on there, you actually were biased towards a certain action. All right, so in the moment, you might hit the call button, but then as soon as you hit it, you realize, oh, wait a second, I'm in a narrow frame of mind here. He's got all these value hands, and your mind just opens up. Sometimes people have this moment where they click the button. I used to have this sometimes. Just I'm clicking it, I'm like, actually, is that true? Oh shit! Or you'll click it and then instant regret. You're like, of course he's got the nuts. Of course he got the nuts. That makes perfect sense. He's never bluffing there, and you see that moment. All right, so and on the flip side, we have the other filter, right? So the passive filter. So let's say you're in the analytical mode and you're bored. You're bored, or you're disconnected, you're disengaged from the games you're playing, and you're in passive mode. Now a spot comes down on the river, and it's a big pot. Maybe your opponent double pots, bets the river, overbet jams it, and you've got a bluff catch in hand, and your filter says, I don't want to get in a big pot. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't know what he's got here. He must have it. So the question you then ask yourself is, what's his value hands? What can't I beat? What's these nutty combos? And as soon as you ask that, the mind goes, he's got this nutty combo, this nutty combo, this nutty combo. You can't beat this, you can't beat that, you can't beat that. Boom, you go, all right, yeah, fold. All right, and you made that fold button. All right, so what I'm trying to show you guys here is that the mind is very complex and it's in these different levels. All right, so if we look at it from the outside, we've got the modes. All right, so if we're in the intuitive modes or the analytical modes, very quickly we're going to be able to make good decisions because we're not going to be overthinking stuff. If we're in the analytical mode, from there branches your emotional state. All right, there's loads of emotional states, from angry, frustrated, annoyed, happy, calm, whatever. All right, that emotional state will then impact a subconscious filter that you're running. All right, so picture it for yourself when you've made some bad decisions. What filter was running for you? Often for players, the one that's most noticeable is the aggressive filter. All right, and generally emotions like frustration and anger have a big impact on your decision making. All right, so you feel a bit frustrated, you feel a bit angry, or you just feel a bit annoyed that things aren't going your way. you then have a tendency, or a lot of players do, have a tendency to want to play aggressive in those moments, to fight back, to want to call. And if you look at that and you stop, what you'll see is in those moments, you'll ask yourself very lead-in questions. What is he bluffing? What can I beat? What's my range look like here, and how can I manipulate the situation to make myself call? And then you'll make the decision that is already pre-decided that you basically want to call or raise. All right. So what's interesting here is, first of all, we've got many kind of points of attack. All right, many points to kind of fix the problem. First of all is to get good at using your intuition. All right, and much better at not overthinking and building confidence. Obviously, as a poker player, as you're moving up stakes, you're improving, depending on where you're out on your journey, sometimes the mind's going to be very active. All right, it's really hard to switch it off, and you're going to use a lot of analytical thinking as you play. All right, so let's say you are analyzing, you can't get into your intuition that often at the moment. Then we need to look at your emotional state. All right, and understand that certain emotional states are going to cause you to use different form of kind of biases. All right, so if you're angry, if you're frustrated, you might be turning on the aggressive filter. All right, so what you want to do here is you want to counter it. You want to counter your default filter with the inverse. All right, so let me explain this. So let's say you're in the aggressive mode, you're feeling angry, and you're using your aggressive filter, and you're asking yourself the question, what are his bluffs? You instantly want to counter that with, what are his value hands? All right, so you want to create another argument so the mind doesn't go down one side. All right, it doesn't go into one kind of chain of thought. Now, obviously, in this process, you are going to go back and forth. But the main thing is, in this kind of leveling process, you want to have an accurate representation as best as possible. You want to have a kind of neutral, the pros and cons list. You don't want all the cons, you don't want all the pros. You want to really be able to logically think about the situation correctly. So ask yourself, when you see yourself asking for what are his bluffs, instantly counter with what are his value hands. And on the flip side, if you're in the passive frame of mind and you see yourself asking yourself, what's his value hands, ask yourself what's his bluffs. Right, so counter it. Go for the inverse of of what the kind of filter's saying. All right, and this happens. The filter's quite subconscious, but watch yourself when you're asking yourself questions and pay attention. All right, so start to be a bit of a scientist in your own life after watching this video. Pay attention to how your emotional states turn on these filters, and have a look at what questions you ask yourself and how that misleads you. Now, I had a call with a coaching client yesterday, and he was saying he fights this battle. All right, this battle between his intuition and his analytical mind. And he says, I want to use my intuition, but then I also want to use my analytical mind to figure out what I'm doing and then use the best decision. All right? And he was trying to ask me, which one do I use? Which do I go with, my intuition or my analytical mind? And how can I stop myself using my analytical mind? And my kind of solution to this was, basically, if you're using your intuition, you go with it straight away. All right? So intuition is a quick process. You feel it, you think about it, you go, all right? As soon as you stop that process and go, I feel like I should fold, but let me check with the analytical mind, that puts it up into this prefrontal cortex and the conscious part of your mind that starts analyzing it. As soon as the analytical mind takes over, you can't just go back to your intuition, all right? And the reason for this is the analytical mind is very logical and very data-driven, whereas intuition is very feel-based. And when it comes to a kind of a discussion in the prefrontal cortex and the logical part of the mind, intuition loses. Intuition's got no argument. All right, so the analytical mind goes, intuition, push that aside, I know better. All right, so if you see yourself doing this and you have a gut feeling that it should be a call or a fold, and you see yourself second guessing yourself and thinking it, this is what's happening. You have an intuitive feeling to go with, you ignore that in the short term to give yourself more time to think, then as soon as the thinking takes over, you can't go back with that gut feeling. All right, and now you're going to use your logic to decide. All right, so that's what happens when you level yourself. Hopefully I've given you a little tool to use there to watch it. So from this video, pay attention to what mode you're in, first of all, analytical mode or intuitive mode. If you're in intuitive mode, game over, you win. If you're in the analytical mode, pay attention to your state of mind, your emotional state. If you're in a heightened emotional state, you may be more aggressive. Pay attention to your default tendencies. If you're in a lower emotional state, like bored, you may be more of passive states. And then watch how the mind uses those filters to ask very leading questions. All right, and when you see your mind doing that, counter it with the opposite. If you see yourself asking one of his bluffs, ask yourself what his value hands, and vice versa. All right, and this is really fundamental because we don't realize how illogical we are at times. We think we're making logical decisions when in reality, the brain's using a really, really strong filter and a bias. We feel like calling because we're in that aggressive mode, so we call. All right, and I want you guys to have a better framework and be able to tackle this at the root level. So if that was helpful, drop a comment below to let me know how the analytical mind causes problems for you. Maybe share a hand or a spot where you overthought it and as a result made a mistake, and I'd love to know your insights on that. All right, guys, thanks for watching this to the very end. Smash the like button before you go so I know you like this kind of content. There's going to be plenty more coming from me very soon.